Hi everyone, welcome to MathSux. This video is going to help you pass algebra. In this video we're going to go over how to graph a piecewise function step by step. So let's start by looking at this example here. We have f of x equals x plus 1 where x is greater than or equal to 0. That's the first part. And then we have the second part that tells us that's also part of f of x, x minus 3 where x is less than 0. So all this is saying is for f of x, there's two lines that are a part of it, but they both have limits on their x values. So it's kind of like we're graphing part of the line x plus 1, and only where the x values are greater than or equal to 0. And then it's like we're graphing part of x minus 3, the line x minus 3, where the x values are all less than 0, where they're all negative. So let's start by looking at the first part of this piecewise function. So let's bring on over the information over here. So we have x plus 1, where x is greater than or equal to 0. So there's a bunch of different ways to do this, but I always like to do this by making a chart to make things easier. So we have x, and then the function, the part of the function we're looking at, x values, x plus 1, and then we're going to get y values by doing this. So this next part is we're going to fill in the x values based on this. This is going to be like our little key. So knowing that this function has values greater than or equal to 0, we're going to want to start at 0, and then we're going to go up because it's greater than 0. So positive numbers. So we have 0, 1, 2. So now what we're going to do is plug in the x values that we found over here into the part of the function x plus 1. So just plugging in 0 for x. So 0 plus 1, 1 plus 1, and then 2 plus 1. So just plugging in these numbers. And now finding what the y values are. So just adding these together. So 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 1 is 2, and 2 plus 1 is 3. So what we did is actually find coordinates for the first part of our function. So we found the x, y coordinates. So we have 0, 1 is our first one, 1, 2 is the next one, and then 2, 3, the last one. And now we could just go ahead and start graphing the first part of our piecewise function. So if we go 0, 1, just following these coordinates over here, 1, 2, and then 2, 3. And now we can just connect the dots and draw our little arrow and label the first part of our graph. So if you notice, these are all the x values that are greater than or equal to 0. So that's why we knew we could draw an arrow, because this pattern keeps continuing, and if this graph were bigger, this would just keep going up and going to the right. So now we want to graph the second part of our piecewise function in a very similar way. So we're going to bring the information over here. So we have x minus 3, where x is less than 0. And we're going to draw a table again. So we have x, and then x minus 3, and then we're going to get y values. So again, we're going to refer to this domain, x is less than 0, to fill in our x values over here. So if things are less than 0, so we could start at 0 again, but this time they're less than 0, so they're going to be negative. So we could go down. So we have 0, negative 1, negative 2. And we're just going to do the same thing we did here and plug in our numbers for x. So we have 0 minus 3, negative 1 minus 3, and then negative 2 minus 3. And I just want to calculate each one and to find our y value. So 0 minus 3 is negative 3, negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4, and then negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. And now we can just write our coordinates on the side from what we found, focusing on the x values and the y values. So our first one is 0, negative 3. Our next one is negative 1, negative 4. And then the last one is negative 2, negative 5. So this is a little different when graphing this because we have this less than sign. So what this less than sign means is when something is that we're x is less than 0. So that means we're not including 0 in the solution. So wherever x is 0, we're actually going to be using an open circle to represent this. So if you look at our first point, 0, -3, we want to use an open circle there because wherever x is 0, it is not included in the solution. So over here we had something that was greater than or equal to 0, meaning that it's included, which is why we have a closed circle. So when we go to graph 0, -3, we use an open circle because this is not included in the solution, but everything less than it is. So the rest of the coordinates we can now graph normally. So if we go -1, -4, we're going to put that as a closed circle because these numbers are now included in the solution. And now we go -2, -5, just for our last coordinate, and now we can connect the dots and draw an arrow. And again, we could draw an arrow, and label our graph. We could draw an arrow because this x is less than 0 represents all the negative numbers in our function, f of x. And that's how you graph piecewise functions, just one step at a time and being careful of what the domain and ranges are, noticing open and closed circles. So if you want more practice questions like this, check out my blog. I wrote a bunch of questions for you guys, link below. And if this helped you at all, please give it a like. Happy calculating. Need more practice? Check out MathSux.org for more questions, link below. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Happy calculating!